Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we are going to be reacting to real life lore. Now, he has a few India videos, and his most recent video here is why most Indians live above this line. This is the video I'm going to react to today. Though, I do want to point out, yes, I understand the map is incorrect. I have checked the comments. I've sorted by news so we can get the most recent comments here. And I do believe, yeah, there's people saying wrong channel, they can report it next time. What's your problem with showing the correct India map, fix India's map? There's a lot of people saying the map is incorrect. It is I understand it's a very touching geopolitical issue. I support India's claim on the land, but of course, different countries in the world are going to have different feelings on this. So when it comes to third-party map sources, it can be a little bit difficult. So just want to put that disclaimer out there ahead of the video. But I still think that this video is should be a good watch. I have watched a lot of real-life lore videos in the past, and I do believe that he makes good content. So we're gonna go ahead and get into the video. Shall we? Yes, we shall.
For hundreds, if not thousands of years, India has remained the world's second most populous country behind China. But in a matter of only a few more months, that historical reality will change forever. At some
Now,
point
this
in
video is
2023,
older.
the Indian population
I think he's talking about, yeah, so this is from November 22nd, 2022, and I do believe India now is currently the highest populated country in the world.
will finally overtake the Chinese with more than 1.4 billion people, and from then on throughout the rest of the 21st century and beyond, India will likely continue to remain the new world's most populous nation.
It is baffling just trying to wrap my head around the concept of that many people in a singular spot, or in a singular country, not a singular spot. Um, like the U.S. is something like less than 400 million, I believe, right now. Don't quote me on that. I don't know the exact numbers. I haven't looked recently, but it is a minuscule amount in comparison. And I feel like a lot of places here are too crowded.
And it has been a long time coming. As recently as 70 years ago, back in 1950, China's population of 552 million was still significantly larger than India's 359 million. But over the 7+ decades of history that have followed since then, India's population grew by a whopping 390%.
That's incredible.
While China's only grew by 255%. And while China's population is beginning to stagnate and decrease, India's is still growing. By the midpoint of the century.
Yeah, to speak on China, China's population is stagnating and decreasing because of many factors. I know a little bit about China. I'm just gonna interject a little bit of my own knowledge here. The one-child policy that they had for such a long time led families to want to only have male children. So a lot of the times, the female children were aborted or killed or discarded, whatever. So now there is a influx of a very, very heavy male dominant society, and there's not enough I guess yeah, there's just not enough women to go around for these families to be created to continue the continuous growth. Also, China is very, very anti-immigration, incredibly anti-immigration. So that is another thing.
In 2050,
This is a video about India. What am I doing talking about China? I'm sorry.
the United Nations projects that China will lose around 30 million people from their population a day, while India will add another 200 million more, nearly an entire
Did they how much did they say?
a day.
A day?
China will lose around 30 million people from their population a day.
A day. 30 million people a day? What?
While India will add another 200 million more, nearly an entire Brazil's worth of additional people in less than 30 years. But the massive explosion in India's population over the past several decades has not been even across the whole country, and India's continued growth across the 21st century will not be even either.
I was gonna say, what is that child doing on the bridge? But it was a monkey. Okay.
In fact, the majority of the states within India already have fertility rates.
Oh, this is great. Hold on. I want to see this. So fertility rates, the higher the number, the better, right? Bihar is the highest. That's interesting. I wonder why it's the highest. Because Bihar is also the like the lowest economically, right? Meghalaya is right behind it. Uttar Pradesh. Puducherry is only 1.5. Okay. Oh, Jammu and Kashmir is 1.4. Oh, Sikkim's only 1.1. Whoa. Okay. Anyways,
The amount of children born per woman that are lower than the natural population have fertility rates. The amount of children born per woman that are lower than the natural population replacement level of 2.1. This means that the birth rate across most of India is actually already more comparable to countries in the West and elsewhere who are experiencing natural population decline, like Japan, Germany, and the United Kingdom. The only states in India that are still growing their populations, and the states that will add the vast majority of those additional 200 million Indians by 2050, are all up in the north of the country in these states: Bihar, Meghalaya, Uttar Pradesh, Jharkhand, and Manipur. And perhaps unsurprisingly, these are the same general areas that have been leading the majority of India's population growth now for decades. If you draw a line across India up here in the north, you will discover a startling population imbalance within the country.
Well, this is that giant river valley with the Ganga River, right? So, I mean, there's tons and tons and tons of rivers right here, all feeding off of the Himalayas. The meltwater from the Himalayas just coming down and just completely making this a huge fertile paradise.
Nearly half of India's population of about 1.4 billion people live to the north of this line, across just a relative sliver of the country's total area, while the other half, of course, live beneath it across the majority of India's landmass.
That makes sense,
This line of population distribution within India can come as a shock to many Americans and people in the West who are unfamiliar with India, because the majority of India's largest megacities that most Westerners have heard of are actually beneath this line in the south. Of the top 5 largest cities in India, 4 of them are beneath this line. And of the top 10, 7 of them are beneath it, including the largest and the most densely populated city in India of all, Mumbai. The sheer scale of Mumbai's population is difficult for a lot of people to understand, so let me try and put it this way. Mumbai is a coastal city and located across an island called Salsette. This island is only 619 square kilometers in size, which is smaller than Singapore, and yet it is home to more than 20 million people.
I did not know that. 20 million people live on that island, and it's smaller than Singapore. 4 times the amount of people that live in Singapore live in Mumbai. Wow. That is actually incredible.
Which is greater than the entire population of Kazakhstan, the world's 9th biggest country. To put it another way, all of the boroughs of New York City combined, Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, Staten Island, and the Bronx, add up to 784 square kilometers, which is 42% more land than Salsette Island where Mumbai is located, and yet New York City's population is less than 8.5 million people.
Wow. That is a dense city. I didn't realize the magnitude of how dense it was.
Salsette Island therefore has about the same population density as Manhattan, but across an area that is 10 times the size of Manhattan, including this place called Dharavi. This location within Mumbai is considered to be one of the largest slums in the world, and not because of its area. The whole place is only about 2 square kilometers in size, or about 3/5 of Central Park in the middle of Manhattan.
It really reminds me of Kowloon City. I know Kowloon City is not a thing anymore, but Kowloon City was a walled city in Hong Kong. The city itself was Chinese when the British occupied Hong Kong, and Hong Kong was its own separate thing. But Kowloon City was inside of it. And it was just like stacks and stacks and stacks of buildings that looked like this. Were very reminiscent of this. Think this, but even taller, stacked on top of each other. But yeah, this definitely reminds me of something like that.
And yet, there are about 1 million people who live crowded within here, making it one of the most densely populated places anywhere on the planet. And yet, insanely crowded Dharavi within Mumbai on Salsette Island is still south of the population line within the area where the minority of Indians overall live.
Wow.
This fact makes more sense though when you look at India through the lens of population density, where you can now clearly see the nearly unbroken chain of continuous clusters of people across the north of India above the line, and only scattered clusters of high population urban areas across the area south of the line, including most of India's big megacities like Mumbai, Bangalore, and Hyderabad. But why is India's population pattern shaped this way, with a massive amount of people living within the interior of the country up in the north, and relatively fewer people living around the coasts and in the south? A very big part of the explanation is simply the Indian subcontinent's geography and its influence on weather patterns. And we'll begin here by swapping out the population density map for a topographic map. One of the biggest keys to the puzzle are simply the enormous arc of mountains to the north of the subcontinent, the Himalayas and the Hindu Kush. These mountains are the tallest and the most formidable in the world, and are among the youngest mountains as well. They were formed millions of years ago when the Indian tectonic plate first crashed into the Eurasian plate, a geologic process that is still ongoing, just as it has for
Yeah, the Everest is still growing, or the Himalayas are still technically growing, like a few centimeters per year. What the heck is this?
tens of millions of years now. The Indian plate is still crashing northwards into the Eurasian plate at a pace of around 67 millimeters a year, which is contributing to the already towering mountains of the Himalayas growing even higher. Mount Everest, already the highest mountain in the world, is continuing to grow even higher at a pace of around 4 millimeters a year because of this ongoing process. In total, there are more than 100 different mountain peaks across the Himalayas that soar to more than 7,200 meters above sea level, and they all serve to create the most significant barrier across land anywhere on the planet. Most significantly for India, these towering mountains basically act like a wall, and they block nearly all of the frigid and dry polar winds that blow down from the north from Siberia across Central Asia. As a result, the land to the north of the mountains in Tibet is effectively a high, dry, and cold desert because there's nothing to stop all those winds until they hit the wall of the mountain.
This is the Gobi Desert, right? Is that what that's called? The Gobi Desert? I think so.
And because of these mountains, they cause the opposite climatic effects over to the south in India. Without any of the cold and dry winds blowing in from Central Asia, northern India is kept significantly warmer and wetter than it otherwise would be. And consequently, the temperate zone extending
They're in Maharashtra.
across northern India is significantly warmer than any other temperate zone on the planet, especially during the winter months, which means that the growing season for plants here is effectively year-round and longer than pretty much anywhere else. But then the other big thing that the towering Himalayas do for northern India and its population potential is significantly affect the area's monsoon winds and levels of precipitation. During the summer months, moist air evaporated from the Indian Ocean will be pushed into the subcontinent, and when that moist air reaches the mountains, it will rise and cool, but fail to climb high enough to reach over the mountains into Tibet, which is another reason why Tibet is so dry and arid. Then, that cool and moist air will have nowhere left to go but back down from the mountain slopes and across the open plains of northern India and Bangladesh, which often means that the summer months between June and September will see an absolutely ungodly amount of rainfall here in an annual process known as the southwestern monsoon. But the vast plains of northern India don't get most of their water from rainfall. Instead, they get most of it from the rivers that also come down from the towering mountains.
What did I say? What did I say?
Up in the north. You see, the mountains here store the third largest concentration of freshwater ice and snow in the world, remaining only behind Antarctica and the Arctic Circle. As a result, the Himalayas alone contain an estimated 15,000 separate glaciers that collectively store somewhere around 12,000 cubic kilometers worth of fresh water, roughly equivalent to the entire volume of water found in Lake Superior within North America. So as a result of their height and their enormous volumes of water, 3 of the world's mightiest rivers all begin up here, and they all flow to the south through the plains of northern India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. The Indus, the Ganges, and the Brahmaputra rivers. And these rivers are what grant the wide open plains of the northern subcontinent their name, the Indo-Gangetic Plain, a stretch of nearly continuous flat, arable farmland that is larger than the entire...
I didn't realize both of these rivers converged and exited out of Bangladesh. That's interesting. I didn't realize that. For some reason in my head, I was thinking that the Ganga River exited out of West Bengal. Huh, okay.
entirety of France, and the second largest piece of contiguous arable land anywhere in the world, only behind the Great Mississippi Basin in the United States. And best of all, the Indus, Ganges, and Brahmaputra rivers and all of their tributaries that flow through this huge plain are all fed by the glaciers up in the Himalayas, which means that they maintain a continuous flow of water all throughout the year, and they aren't heavily dependent upon the
This poor dog. Why? You gotta show this poor dog stuck in the monsoon. This poor dog.
erratic winds of the weather that brings the rain. And even better, the glacial melt into these rivers from the mountains blesses the rivers with an abundance of rich minerals and nutrients, which means that whenever the rivers overflow into the region's floodplains, they distribute those nutrients into the soil and effectively function as a form of rich and powerful natural fertilizer. In short, a perfect combination of factors that creates the richest and the most highly fertile piece of farmland anywhere in the world that can grow a massive amount of food all throughout the year to support a lot of people. It's no surprise then that when you compare a map of India's population density with a map of India's elevation, with a further map of India's agricultural productivity, you'll see that most of the agricultural productivity is up in the population belt.
I like how this map is from 2003 to 2005. That's just maybe potentially slightly out of date. Now I understand, the region probably hasn't changed a little bit, but one would think there's a more up to date map than something that's 20 years old. Well, I guess at the time of this guy's recording, 19 years old. But still. Still very interesting to see. You do see like little pockets of like the super high fertility land all throughout the rest of India as well, like here in Gujarat, here in like Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh. This right here is Odisha, right? Because this right here is West Bengal. And it goes West Bengal. Yeah. Okay. It's hard to see. No data. There's no data here in the middle of Chhattisgarh. Okay.
Belt of people across the flat plains of the north, while much of the Indian interior to the south of the line is simply a lot less agriculturally productive and, consequently, has a lower population density. It's also a small wonder, then, how the northern Indian state of Uttar Pradesh alone became home to more than 240...
He says Uttar. He calls it Uttar. Uttar Pradesh? I've always called it Uttar Pradesh. I've always enunciated the T's. Uttar Pradesh. Uttar Pradesh? I don't know.
3 million people today, greater than the entire population of Pakistan or Brazil, and all in an area that's no
more than Brazil. Okay.
Larger than the United Kingdom. Conversely, the southern portions of India beneath the population line don't have the same scale of advantages towards agriculture and population growth that's seen in the north. Much of the area beneath the line is dominated by a large geographic feature known as the Deccan Plateau, a largely arid, rocky, and hilly expanse of land with an average elevation of about 600 meters. And while the Himalayan mountain range greatly improves the north's ability to grow food, another mountain range down here across the south and the west inhibits this region's ability to do the same. The Western Ghats here that extend across the westernmost fringe of the country. While they may not be as dominating as the Himalayas, the Western Ghats are still a significant mountain range nonetheless, with many of their peaks over 2,000 meters in height, which are higher than the biggest mountain range found in Australia that separates that continent's narrow and wet eastern coastal plain from the dry outback desert of the interior. And in a similar fashion to those mountains in Australia, the Western Ghats here in India generally cause the same kind of effect over the Deccan Plateau of the Indian interior. There's only a narrow coastal plain between them in the east and the Arabian Sea in the west, where winds blowing in from the ocean are actually capable of depositing their rainfall. But once those...
Why do none of these channels talk about Lakshad Dweep, whatever the island range here is called? It's brought up so infrequently that I don't even know how to pronounce it correctly. But why does nobody talk about these? It's still part of India. Same with the other islands over here to the east.
As moist winds strike the Western Ghats, they fail to climb over them, and so the lands to their east across the Deccan Plateau are drier and more arid than they otherwise.
I mean, he even kind of has it like highlighted here with whatever this map he's using here. They're kind of highlighted, but it looks like he has just a box kind of blocking it out for whatever reason.
Would be were the
Sorry,
mountains
let me
not
go
to
back.
like the Western Ghats, they fail to climb over them, and so the lands to their east across the Deccan Plateau are drier and more arid than they otherwise would be were the mountains not to exist. This is why, when you look at a precipitation map of India, you can clearly see the effect that the Western Ghats
He even has these ones highlighted down here, but he doesn't have these. Why?
have, with abundant rainfall across the narrow strip of a coastal plain in the west, and significantly less rainfall immediately beyond them in the interior, where the Deccan Plateau is. And then, to complement the continuous Western Ghat Mountains, there is a similar mountain range across the east of India as well, the Eastern Ghats. These aren't continuous, and they're a little smaller than the mountains across Western India, so they don't block as much moisture coming in from the Bay of Bengal, but they do serve to block some of it. So the vast expanse of the Deccan Plateau in the interior is less flat and receives less rainfall than the plains of the north, which of course makes agriculture a more difficult practice here. But then there is the further disadvantage that the rivers across the south of India here are not fed by glaciers like they are in the north, and instead they're fed by rainfall. The biggest three rivers here to consider are the Godavari, Krishna, and Kaveri, all three of which begin within the Western Ghats mountain range and flow eastwards across the Deccan Plateau before emptying into the Bay of Bengal. But of course, the Western Ghats are nowhere near as high as the Himalayas are, and they're located a lot further south where there aren't any cold winds blowing in from Siberia, so they don't have any glaciers. And that means that all the rivers here are entirely fed by the rainfall blowing in from the Arabian Sea. But that means that they aren't as suitable for agriculture as the glacial-fed rivers up in the north like the Ganges and the Brahmaputra for two critical reasons. One, they don't get the same kinds of minerals and nutrients as the glacial-fed rivers do, which means that when they flood, they don't deposit the same levels of nutrients into the soil. And two,
I never thought about that actually, but it makes perfect sense because the glacial melt is literally eroding the mountains whilst it's melting into the rivers in the north, the Brahmaputra and the Ganga River. So it's bringing basically the life essence of the Himalayas down into down into those rivers to fertilize the land. I never thought of it that way. Interesting.
two, their water volumes are left to the mercy of the weather. So when it doesn't rain for a while, the rivers have less water in them, and there's less water available for things like irrigation that's necessary for agriculture. While conversely, the rivers up in the north almost always have a lot of water in them for irrigation because they're fed by the world's third largest system of glaciers that aren't dependent on the erratic whims of the weather. While there are locations of high agricultural productivity in the south of India, they're more limited in area and scattered apart from each other in stark contrast to the huge continuous piece of farmland across the north of India. And thus, this is why you also have smaller and more scattered concentrations of high population density across the southern section of India beneath the line in places like Mumbai, Hyderabad, and Bangalore. But
And then of course you have Kerala down here, which looks like it has a huge population density as well. I mean, you see the reds here. There's deep reds here that are equivalent to, of course, these cities and to the north as well.
not large stretches of continuously high density like you see in the north. But it's not like the population of India beneath this line is low. There's still more than 700 million people who live there, which is about the entire population of Europe. It's still pretty densely populated at about the same scale as Germany all throughout it.
I like the look of that. This is nice. I don't know, there's something really nice about this. Where is this located? What is this? What do we got here? Wait. Where is this located? Can I zoom in on this? No, of course I can't. Oh no, I can. Oh, no, I can't. Okay. I was trying to zoom in on this so I can figure this out. I just can't quite see. This is not to the south, though. Where is this? Because this is not. This is none of the southern languages. Maybe it's a bit further north than what he's saying. Anyways.
Stretches of continuously high density like you see in the north. But it's not like the population of India beneath this line is low. There's still more than 700 million people who live there, which is about the entire population of Europe. It's still pretty densely populated at about the same scale as Germany all throughout it. It's just that the overall density to the north above the line in places like Uttar Pradesh and Bihar is just absolutely insane. And the most crowded stretch of land
Why is there a monkey? Why the monkey?
anywhere in the world. And with what's arguably the most productive piece of farmland anywhere in the world, it's really no wonder why. Now, if you're anything like me, you're probably intensely curious about why our world works the way
Well,
it
he's
does.
going to be talking about his
The world is a
advertisement.
complicated...
I'm reacting to his video, so we're going to let his advertisement play, and then I'm going to go back through and talk about a little bit of this, of what I've seen here.
and sometimes difficult to understand.
Actually, what we'll do here, we'll 2 times it.
Place. Science and math serve as the primary tools in helping us understand our complicated reality, but for myself, and perhaps for you as well, science and math are each subjects that have never come easy and may even seem impossible to truly grasp at times. I struggled with learning science and math myself for years until I discovered brilliance. And now through them, everyone, regardless of prior knowledge or ability, can get a little dose of scientific learning every single day. Whether you're looking to learn something completely new or you're just trying to brush up on a few topics, the best way to learn anything is by actually doing the work yourself. And there's no better place to do that than on Brilliant. You see, Brilliant is an interactive STEM learning platform that helps you learn concepts by working through them in a visual, hands-on, and easy to comprehend way. And you can get started on any number of courses, from more basic but still fascinating concepts like the physics of the everyday and casino.
These are like things that I've learned in like grade school. Why is Brilliant advertising this? Casino probability?
To more advanced cutting-edge fields like computer science and algorithms, to chemistry and electricity, and so much more. And regardless of which subject you choose to learn about, you get to learn at your own pace, you can learn on the go with our mobile app, and most importantly of all, you get to actually enjoy the rewarding process of learning cool new things about our awesome reality. And if you ever get stuck on a particular question, Brilliant never punishes you or impedes your progress. Instead, they'll give you an in-depth explanation to guide you along your learning path. And best of all, you can try out Brilliant right now for free with the link down in the description, or by clicking the button.
I don't know about that. That everything I saw there was like stuff I'd learned in like middle school and grade school. Anyways, this is really interesting. I think the video overall was a pretty good little look, a quick little look. I could probably have said it a little bit quicker. I mean, I literally did say it quicker at the very beginning, right? Where I said the Ganga River is fed by the ice shelf, or fed by the waters of the Himalayas, and that's why the area is so fertile. But I didn't realize like just how densely populated the northern part of India actually is. So Uttar Pradesh, did I remember, did I hear that correctly, where Uttar Pradesh has the most people? I guess it's the most person per square kilometer, and like this portion of Uttar Pradesh right here is like the size of Brazil population wise. That's still quite a bit. Is a lot. Okay, cool. You know what? That's actually really interesting. In the Western Ghats, of course, yeah, makes sense. You know, fed by the Arabic Sea over here, Arabic or Arabic. How do you pronounce that? Arabian Sea. At least that's what it says on my map way up here. The Arabian Sea. Okay. I need to figure out what these islands are called. Hold on. Yeah, okay. So it's Lakshad Weep. How do you pronounce this? Is there like pronunciation here? Oh my God. What is this? What? Oh, Malayama. Uh I was hoping there was a pronunciation of this, of the Lakshad Weep, Lakshad Weep, Lakshad Weep, Lakshad Weep. Is it Lakshad Weep? Hmm. Okay. And then of course we have the Andaman and Nicobar Islands over here. Nobody talks about those. None of these channels, when they talk about India, they talk about India, like the main continent. They don't talk about the islands here. It's a bit disappointing. It's a bit disappointing. The Indian Ocean's to the south. This is the Bay of Bengal. And then I didn't realize that the Ganga and the Brahmaputra River, yeah, okay, they both they both exit out into Bangladesh here. Interesting. It's very, very interesting. Okay. For whatever reason, I always thought that the Ganga River exited out of West Bengal, but I guess I never actually took a deeper look into it, huh? Interesting. 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 Well, with that, everybody, I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm going to be reacting to a lot more videos on the channel, so make sure to stick around and watch that. A lot of it's going to be India, a lot of it's going to be other countries and other historical and geographical areas as well. I also upload a lot of geoguessing content. If you don't know what Geoguessr is, it is a video game. It's a it's a learning tool video game, sure, an edutainment game where you get placed randomly in a country or the world. Most of the time, it's the country. I specifically focus on India a bit, and you have a set amount of time to figure out where you are. And the closer you are that you find on a map, the more points. But yeah, that's what I do on the channel. So stick around, make sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment down below as well, and I will catch you next time. Take care. Goodbye.